welcome to another Bali News update from me, Mr. Steve. Glad to have you all back, but I'm afraid it's going to be bad news today. As the headlines show, there's going to be a major rethink on Bali's recovery, and the likelihood of opening the doors to international tourists on September the 11th is looking far, far away and most unlikely. I'm talking now 2021, before anything happens. Australia and New Zealand have both been saying there won't be any overseas travel till at least 2021, and the headlines now are starting to pick up on this, and certain ministers in Indonesia have been sort of reiterating these comments, saying that it's most unlikely. As the article from the latest business economy editorial, they say each country will devise its own response to COVID-19, which of course they've been doing. Bali's doing a fantastic job in preparing to welcome back tourists safely, but when tourists from key source markets will return remains out of the island's hands and out of Indonesia's hands, and depends mostly on when borders reopen internationally and in the region. And as we write this, for instance, US nationals are unwelcome in most European countries, and the world is warned not to expect Australian travellers to be making any overseas trips until sometime in 2021. It goes on to say that the borders of many nations remain closed to international travel and compel a mandatory quarantine period for foreign visitors and returning expatriates alike. For instance, for me in New Zealand, if I was to take a 2-week break over in Bali, on my return to New Zealand, I would have to undertake a 2-week quarantine in a hotel at my expense, the cost being $3,000. So based on the latest statistics out of Bali, you can see that the blue line, being a cumulative number of positive tests, is always going to keep going up and increasing, but the green line, the second line, is staying, which is the recoveries, people that recovered from the virus, is staying the same distance apart. What we really need to start seeing is the blue line coming below the green line, and then we know we're on the right track to wiping out the virus altogether. But while the statistics stay like this, the chances of a corridor or a bubble with a local market like Australia, New Zealand, China, it's unlikely to happen. And like we said before, the quarantine periods that the foreign tourists have to go through on the return to their own countries is just not great. So like I've been saying all along, the ambition of opening the borders on September the 11th was great, but unfortunately it's not in Bali's hands of when the tourists can come back. So I'm sad about it. It means I'm going to have to wait till I'm picking April 2021 before I'll be able to safely come back and not have the rigmarole of quarantining in a hotel at my own expense when I return to New Zealand. Just couldn't afford that. And even if it got to the stage where I could self-quarantine in my own home, still means I can't work for 2 weeks, and just makes that dream impossible. So it's not looking good, guys, and I hate this term because it's going to be quite common. You're going to hear this all the time from now on, the new normal, and I just can't stand that term. I think we should just try and get back to how it was, the old normal, back of the new normal, wearing masks everywhere we go and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to leave you today. It's a bit of a sad one today, but I'm going to leave you with some pretty sad pictures that have been taken of some of the deserted areas in Bali. Now I know this photographer probably took them at a time when there was no one around, like early, very, very early in the morning, but they certainly do depict the scene in Bali without tourists around. Until next week, guys, this is Mr. Steve with the latest Bali News update.